So I'm just going to make a quick little video on how I removed the R32 engine off of a 2008 Volkswagen. So this is just kind of like how I did it. Doesn't mean that you have to do it this way, but this is what I found easy. That engine over there, cylinder 6, just took a huge shit. So got a new engine, swapping it in. Just a quick little things, and hopefully this helps anyone else out there. Alright, so the first thing that I found super helpful is making sure that you have all your bolts, everything laid out, marked, just so you don't forget anything and put the wrong size bolt in. You don't want to put a smaller bolt in, and like let's say if it's on it hits a water jacket, and then you're really fucked. So first thing is bolts, for sure. Make sure that you have that laid out so you know where to go, where to put it back in. The second thing, there's a brace right here that holds up to the motor mount, which is this guy right here. I found it easier to remove that. Just 3 bolts. You do have to get, they're like the triple squared style. Focus. But yeah, it's the triple squares. Get a whole set of these because they'll make your life so much easier, especially working on Volkswagen. So there's that. And then the second thing is removing the upper intake. Makes it so much easier. One, you can get access to the exhaust, so it makes it easier. I took everything else out. There's a cooling pipe that runs right over here. I found it easier to remove that because that gets in the way when you're trying to put it back in the transmission. Yeah, so I'm not going to bore you with a video of me spending however long it's going to take for me to finagle getting this engine into this tiny little space. So it is just one of those trial and error. You have to support the transmission at the bottom because you don't want that to droop too much. You can put a lot of stress on the axles and the all-wheel drive system. So first you do that, then you go from there. Alright, so I pretty much have the engine and transmission in the sweet spot. It's not all fully bolted in. I only have like 2 bolts holding it. One thing, if you're going to do this, another thing that makes it easier is having the engine at an angle on the hoist. That way you can actually clear this brace right here because the exhaust manifold actually hits right there. So makes it a little bit harder. I don't feel like taking off from the head and all that stuff. So just do this, have the engine at an angle like this, and it literally goes in like butter. So yeah, I'm just gonna put all the bolts for the bell housing and start putting everything back together. Now I have all the bolts started, but there's one in the back of the transmission. You barely have maybe about that much room, which sucks, but it's easier. It's not easier, but it's better to get that one started first, so and then the transmission and engine can actually sandwich together and just meet at the happy end. So I'm gonna go underneath. I'll show you where that one is. That one is probably the hardest one to get to. It's a 16mm bolt. So either you can probably grab a regular 16, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, shallow or anything like that. Just this size should work. And if not, to make it easier, I have one of these ratcheting wrenches. This thing's the balls. Box in on both sides, flex. So this is what I'm going to use for that, but I just wanted to show you where it is. because that one is probably the hardest one to get to. So we're underneath the transmission. I actually painted it yellow so you guys can see it. But yeah, it's a really tight spot. You have just amount from here to there to fit a wrench or anything in there. So that one is the shittiest one. Then there's this guy here, that guy, and then all the way around. But that one is probably the shittiest one out of this whole job. So make sure that one is happy and everything else should go smooth. So at this point I have every bolt tightened up. Transmission mount is back where it should be. You know, I made sure the witness marks were, you know, in their sweet spot, so I'm not seeing the witness marks, which is great. So that's how it was sitting before I took it apart. Motor mount as well. And then underneath there's that dog mount which holds the transmission right there. So that is back together. Now there's one last bolt holding the engine and the transmission together. I highlighted it. I actually painted it yellow. Focus. Alright, not today. So anyway, it's a yellow. I painted it yellow, but it's a 18 millimeter. You can actually use a triple square. Come on. Yep, there we go. So it's a triple square that you can get, or you can just use a 18 millimeter wrench and get to it. So this one is in a really tight spot, but another one that I wanted to show just to make it a little bit easier. So if anyone's doing this, they can kind of expect it. It literally goes. It's kind of tough for you guys to see, but like right here, right there. So it's a tight spot, but you know, if you take off the intake manifold, you should be able to have no problem getting to it. Underneath, yeah, good luck. I tried, you know, getting it from underneath, and I was just not even close. So you get that puppy in there, then pretty much just putting your exhaust manifolds back together. The previous, or whoever owned this before, they did a hack job on the exhaust. Usually you're supposed to just drop the exhaust, take it out, then you have a lot more room to play with. But since someone cut the exhaust where the flanges met, like right there, and they just welded a pipe right through it, so I kind of couldn't take the exhaust down. But in most cases you can do it, but I found it easier just to remove the intake, then I can access all this. There's a shield that goes here. This guy right here. It's just holding on by a couple bolts. There's one triple square right here, one triple square right there, and the whole thing pretty much comes off. You do that, then you have so much room to mess around with. I'm weird, and I like to label everything, anything and everything. If I take it apart, I label it, just so I know when I put it back together, I'm not going to have any problem. I'm not going to be searching for it. I'm not going to be spending any extra time. So, once again, just label everything so you don't have any issues. Even if you don't know exactly what is what, you know, like this one over here, very shitty spot. So, that one is back there. So, at this point, I'm almost done just tucking in all the wires, going into the PCM. I wanted to record this video when I was removing the engine, not putting it back in, but I forgot to charge the batteries on my camera. So regardless, so when it comes down to removing the, you know, the main connector for the PCM, there's going to be a bracket that holds up in here. Volkswagen, they put this in here to prevent you from trying to tamper with the PCM, with the ECU. So you're gonna have to finagle and find a way to get this bracket out, so you can slide this out and get to the connector and then be able to plug her in. But before that, you also have to take the rain tray cowl that goes right in here. You have to be very, very gentle. Just use like a plastic trim tool and start on one point and just work your way around. Eventually you'll just get it out. Just try not to try not to crack the windshield. It's, you know, kind of sensitive. And then to remove these, you're gonna need a special tool. Let me see if I have it here. Where is it? Here. So this little guy right here, you can remove the windshield wiper arms without damaging the windshield. Essentially they just wrap around the arm, tighten up, and then, you know, you twist this at the top here, and then the shaft goes down, and then it just compresses it and it just pops it out. Yeah, or else you might have a really hard time and you might crack the windshield. So best of luck. Like I said, you're gonna have to bend this. I just kept wiggling it back and forth, and then eventually it like cracked. I forget where it cracked. Oh, right there. It literally just snapped. Focus. Yeah, it snapped right there at the bottom of these two bolts, and I was able to finagle it out. So it's been a while since I got the camera, but once you want to start putting everything back together, you know, you have all your hoses. I spent some time putting everything back together, alternator, all that sort of stuff. To remove this cover or to install that, so you can gain access to the ECM with Pete, you have one 10 millimeter bolt right here. Then you also have a nut that goes right here. Then this literally just slides right up, and you can get that out of the way. So cool. When you actually get that cover put in, we get this put in. There's two 10 millimeters underneath, one right there, another one like right there. Take these off, boom. And then to install or remove the wiper cowl, it literally just sits on a little lip. There's a lip right in there that it just sits. So you just have to go all the way around and just make sure that you're around that lip and just push it in, and it just stays in. But yeah. So at this point I have almost everything back together except for the front bumper. But you take all these Phillips heads out. This kind of moves. You can literally just pull it out after. Take the air filter out. This little cover here just pops off. There's two screws, one here and one there, and that's all that it does. So I just wanted to show anyone, you know, how I did it and how, you know, some of the things to look for and avoid, maybe try and save some time. So hopefully that helps anyone else out there. You know, I know it's not as detailed as, you know, removing and installing as it should, but, you know, some of the little tricks. So there you go.